Hi, everybody, and welcome to a long forsaken episode of House Rings and Dirty Things. Sam and I both have had a whole bunch of shit going on. I'll speak for myself first. Carly and I, since our last episode, have been spending pretty much every weekend of ours looking for a house to buy, and we have finally found one to purchase.
Woot
And
woot.
that's kind of what I've been doing, and that has taken precedent over doing this. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I have been sick for 2 weeks and then just dealing with a little toddler who is, well,
Just deal with being a dad.
yeah, doing dad stuff, which is being sick does not help. But here we are. So we're going to talk about two episodes today. We're going to talk about episodes 5 and 6 of the season 3 of Legend of Vox Machina. And then we're going to, just a quick preview, we're going to finish up in some we're going to talk about multiple episodes of the anime for the next few episodes, and then we'll transition into our Andor coverage. So we're going to get a new season of Andor coming up in April, and we are excited to talk about that, but we're going to wrap up our Vox Machina coverage with two discussions today. First, we're going to start with episode 5, The Frigid Doom. In a flashback to their adventuring days, Allura and Kima bicker over how to handle a chimera. In the present, Allura, Vex, and Percy save Kima and rush to reopen the rift while being pursued by Vorogol. The rest of Vox Machina dive into the rift with Yank following behind. While aiming at various members of Vox Machina, Vorogol and Yank hit each other, leading to a violent clash between the massive creatures. Vorogol emerges victorious but heavily wounded. Sensing an opportunity, Kima drives Mythcarver into Vorogol's wounded chest, and Vox Machina follows up with a full frontal assault, culminating in an arrow shot by Vex into the same wound, to which Keyleth attaches vines which constrict and then destroy the dragon's heart. A tree grows from the dying dragon as Kima delivers the killing blow. In Amon, Thordak rages at the outcome, but takes comfort in knowing that his now hatching progeny only need their first meal to complete their birth. Ripley then appears with a suggestion of where they can get that meal. Back in Draconia, Vex and Percy reconcile, and Scanlan uses a magical key he got from Umbersil's hoard to create Chateau Shorthalt, so the party can have a comfortable evening's rest. Sean, what did you think of episode 5?
There's two main things that happen in this episode. The first is the escape and the fight with Vorogol, which no qualms with either of those things. I thought it was a really cool Pacific Rim moment where you have basically two titans fighting each other, Vorogol and Yank.
Mm-hmm.
It also gave me Godzilla vibes, where the one Japanese scientist says, "Let them fight." And then you just kind of see the two guys go at it. So it was very cool. I liked the fight scene. The concept, I initially thought when I was watching watching the episode for the first time, I thought they were just going to close the portal in time to prevent Yank from coming through.
Oh, yeah.
And then just fight Vorogol. But to see that fight between those two colossal beings was pretty entertaining. And to me, it's another example of them adapting the show for television, making changes, and those changes succeeding.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great sequence.
Yeah, because in the live play, Yank is just kind of a random demon that happened to swallow a vestige at some point in the past. They summon him or it from the hells, basically. And it's explicitly to put him in front of Vorogol because they think that Vorogol, or they hear that he's this like big hunter and he would be interested in fighting and beating Yank. And then they do fight. And I think Vox Machina kind of intervenes here and there and then kind of mops up when it's all said and done. The outcome is still the same. But I like this one better because there's this connection with Yank. I think Yank was interesting from he's kind of metamorphosized during the fight into the kind of the traditional, D&D monster manual version of that demon. Yeah, it was fun. And then just the watching Vox Machina and their allies open up with all the heavy hits. That was fun too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I really don't have a whole lot to say outside of the next big thing was seeing Chateau Shorthalt for the first time.
Yeah, which is a major, I don't know if they call it Chateau Shorthalt in the live play. What do they call it? Just, it's Mordekainen's magnificent mansion, right? I think
It's Scanlan's version of it.
Yeah. I remember, I think like the first time he cast it, he's like, I'm gonna cast Morden Kanan's Magnificent Mansion. Like he was like didn't even know what it was actually gonna be, but it's such a cool spell, and we see more of that in the next episode as well. But I mean, the other I don't want to over skim over it too quickly, but the hatching of the progeny of Thordak. This is also a departure from the live play where Thordak had eggs that, and there was always this kind of like threat that they would hatch, but they never did. And now we actually have a full on like volcanic chromatic dragon breed that is going to be a menace. And
And with a mixture of like elemental power in them as
yeah,
well.
yeah. So this is pretty cool stuff. And we get a good cliffhanger, I think, with the villains at the end of this episode, because there's a couple different directions that they could go, and obviously we're going to talk about what happens in the next episode. It's not a season arching thing, but yeah, this was a fun one. A lot of just kind of brutal action, the type of table session that would be like a 4 hour combat, 4.5 hour combat, and they put it on screen really well.
Did we talk about Vorgal eating their friend, their dragonborn friend? Yes, we
Oh,
did in the last
yeah,
episode.
we must have. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I just
I guess.
wanted to bring that up because I thought that
Yeah,
was
that was fun.
that was karma. If you're going to be a dick, you're going to get eaten.
Oh, for sure. I wonder though, in the live play, Voragel basically destroys Draconia, right?
Yeah. And then we have that whole subplot of their friend. I can't even remember the dragonborn's name.
Tiberius.
Tiberius, who the voice actor had some issues going on. We've talked about it in seasons 1 and 2 when we covered those, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's where they discover the fate of Tiberius, that he has been frozen by Voragol along with many other Dragonborn. But it seems in this episode that Draconia is spared the fate of destruction that Matt gave them in the campaign.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll come back to Draconia. I don't know. There could be there's some further deviate. There's also this weird subplot of like the tails, the Dragonborn with tails and the Dragonborn without tails. And it's like this caste system where the ones without tails are basically slaves, but then they survive
And rise up.
and rise up and kind of like, yeah, take over. I mean, that was always an interesting thing. I think the as I recall, the live play didn't spend too much time on it. It was like one or two social interactions that the party had to, make some checks and whatever else, and then they were mainly focusing on killing Voragel. But yeah, so I mean, I wouldn't mind returning to Draconia and seeing shit get fucked up, but there's plenty of other places that can get menaced as well.
Yeah. And that's it. We do have, I think the lead into the next big thing is a conversation between Pike and Scanlan, where Scanlan has regret for decisions he's made or abandoning Kaylee. And that leads into the next episode.
That's right. So episode 6 is called The Coming Storm. In Chateau Shorthalt, the party indulge themselves while Scanlan is depressed over his inability to mend his relationship with Kaylee, inadvertently revealing her existence to everyone. Pike comforts Scanlan with a vision which reveals that Kaylee secretly misses him. The group leaves to Whitestone while Scanlan stays behind to find Kaylee. When arriving, they discovered Whitestone has been attacked by Thordak's hatchlings. Vox Machina manages to drive the hatchlings away, but the civilian population suffers heavy casualties. When Rayshawn appears, the group at first blames her for the slaughter, until Percy realizes it was Ripley's doing. Vox Machina ends their alliance with Rayshawn, while Vex comforts Percy, who vows revenge against Ripley, asking for her help.
Giant fight. And the big thing is that we don't have Scanlan because Pike, after revealing Kaylee's loneliness to him, he decides to leave. And she doesn't know anything bad's going to happen. But then the moment that they bamf out and get to Whitestone, it is in the throng of a baby dragon attack.
Yeah, things aren't going very well for the residents of Whitestone. And the summary didn't mention it, but this was kind of, I think Percy talks about it. This was kind of Ripley proving her point about firearms of like, hey, if all of these peasants were armed with guns, they could defend themselves. Which I'll say, just because you give somebody a medieval fantasy firearm doesn't mean they're going to be
Flintlock,
good at it.
basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like they still like the like, yes, there was an advantage moving from bows and arrows to guns, but it still requires a certain amount of training. So it's not like, oh, give it to little Timmy and he's going to be able to protect himself from a magical dragon tsunami. Either way, that was a point. I don't, I kind of like what they're doing there, making that relationship between Ripley and Percy a little bit more um, deep. But yeah, that was rough to watch. I kind of like Whitestone, right? And it seems like it already got brutalized under the Briarwoods, and Vox Machina saved them, and now this. I don't know.
They get brutalized again. Yeah. And this did not happen in the campaign. It feels
Right.
like after they're able to save them from the Briarwoods, they're basically left to their own devices at that point. Like it's relatively peaceful.
Yeah, and they
Uh,
kind of had like there was a little bit of hand waving with Allura and Gilmore like protecting it in some like dome, like Hogwarts level dome,
mhm.
right? And then I think this kind of is. Do you remember the Fort Daxio episode of the live play?
Not
This
off the top of my head.
no, like so there was this fort that belonged to the kingdom of Taldore, and it was like a big army base. I think it was actually named after the guy Daxio, who was or maybe it was some relative of the person who's like a spy for the Briarwoods. Anyway, so there's a big fight there, and I think there were like a lot of Thordax forces, and then Vox Machina showed up late, and there was a battle, like running battle in the street. It was after they got the sun armor, whenever they
Mm.
did. So I think this kind of stands in for that. Although again, you're brutalizing Whitestone as opposed to some fort that we don't really care about.
And peasants versus soldiers.
Soldiers, yeah, that too, that too.
Yeah, townsfolk versus inscripted or conscripted soldiers is a bit different.
Yeah.
I mean, but then the rest of this episode, I don't really have a whole lot to say because it's just them defending Whitestone, unless you
Wait,
have anything particular from the battle that you want to talk about.
not from the battle, but from the Chateau Short Halt part of the episode, we get the infamous hot tub scene.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that was this one.
Yeah, yeah. I watched that with Haley, and she's like, "Oh my god," which
And it was entirely improv in
on
the
the live
actual,
play, yeah,
yeah, in the actual campaign where Vex or Liam as Vex really wanted to go have a conversation with Percy, and then Laura Bailey just knocking it out of the park with that.
yeah,
And then I explode up out of the water.
yeah,
But that's what you get when you have all of these. I'm trying to think of the right word. Incredibly talented voice actors.
yeah. I mean, Laura Bailey too. Thank God for her dirty mind.
Mhm.
It has provided so many great little. I mean, oh my God, Jester and just drawing dicks all over everywhere. Like, yeah, that's great. It's good stuff.
Yeah. That had to have been just a whole nother level of catharsis for her to be able
Hmm.
to do that as a character. Because there's a lot of times in campaigns 1 and 3 where Laura will think of something dirty and then laugh to herself, and then other characters will start or
Oh yeah,
actors will start laughing. But I feel like with Jester that she had free range to just
yeah,
fully dive into all of it. So
yeah.
yeah, it's great.
There's some great compilations on YouTube of like dirty jokes at the table, and it's a lot of like Laura either saying something or not saying something, or like saying something to the person next to her, and they start laughing. It's just,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
And I just had it with one of my favorite moments of all time is from campaign 2. And it's when, or no, it's from campaign 3.
Oh,
It's one of the very beginning episodes. It's fresh cut grass. Have I told you this yet? I think I may have.
favorite smells.
Yes.
Oh yeah, no, I for whatever I mentioned compilation clips. That was a like a YouTube short that just randomly popped up into my
Yeah.
feed. I was like, I remember listening to that and then hearing it again. This was like years later now at this point, right? Um,
Yeah. I mean, legit 4 years ago is when campaign 3 started.
no way, really?
Something like that. Yeah. Because it's done now. They just wrapped
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
120 episodes or something like that. But for those who haven't heard the story, Sam's character in campaign 3 is an automaton, and their name is Fresh Cut Grass. And he goes through the list of all of the different things that his creator named the other automatons after, because she named them after her favorite smells. And then he goes through and he goes fresh
Fresh
cut
cut
grass,
grass,
apple
oatmeal. Yeah.
pie, and then he drops the pussy. And then as soon as he says that, and it's funny too, because when they do the camera scene of like everybody else laughing, and then they cut to Matt, and there's legit like a 15-second pause where he doesn't quite process it. And then the moment he like processes it, he just face palms and can't even look at them for like a minute. But yeah, it's great. It's a very, very funny sequence. And campaign 3 in general is great. I love the story. And it combines all of the campaigns into one. So
Yeah, I know. There's
when you get time.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, I started. I think I can't remember how far I got through, and it was really fun. Oh my God, just the the jokes too. Because who is the werewolf? Travis, right? Was
Yeah, Travis's
the
character.
gnome werewolf? I remember at one point Sam,
Chetney Pakapi.
yeah, it's like before all of his backstory was because at first he was Bertrand Bell, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then this new Pakapi character gets introduced. I remember at one point he's explaining like what he's doing and kind of how he found himself where he was. And so Sam's like, so you came all the way across the continent to get an internship as a carpenter? It's like, what? Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay. So we obviously don't have a ton to talk about. This is a shorter episode, or like not a shorter episode, but a just less stuff happening type episode. Obviously, there was some highlight fun stuff in the Chateau Short Halt, but the big thing was the destruction of Whitestone, and then this ending the alliance with Rayshon. I don't really recall this happening in the live play. Do you? I think it was kind of like relations were icy, but Rayshon was there when they killed Vorugal. Remember, she was like in her dwarf disguise.
Yeah. No, and I don't want to give too much away because we're going to talk about the rest of the episodes of season 3. But yeah, no, until the end of their dynamic, they were dealing in a relative teamwork fashion.
Yeah. Well, we will see how that unfolds as we finish up our coverage of season 3 of The Legend of Vox Machina. Next week, we will cover episodes 7, 8, and 9. Week after that, 10, 11, 12. And then probably have some one-off episodes before we jump into our Andor season 2 coverage.
Which I am so goddamn excited for.
Yeah, me too. Andor.
And I believe this is also the series finale. I don't think they're doing a season 3. I think this is it. So whatever we
of
get.
Andor?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's like a time jump, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we could be literally right up until the where we would pick up on Rogue One or in Rogue One with this character. So
yeah, stay tuned for the next season of the greatest Star Wars show they've created so far.
Sean said it. I agree with it. I agree with him, but Sean said it. Oh, did we talk about Star Wars Land?
No.
We haven't recorded since I went out to California, have we?
No, because that delayed one of our
Yeah.
episodes we were going to do. And then
So one of the things with life is I was out in California for 4 or 5 days with the family, celebrating my grandfather's 90th birthday. Haley and I were able to take Poppy to go to Disneyland. And Sean, you grew up going to Disney World on a relatively frequent basis, right?
Yeah, whichever one's in Florida.
Yeah, Disney World. So I've only been to Disney World once with you all. And then I've never been to Disneyland until earlier this month when Haley and I were out there and we went to took a quick drive, took Poppy. We got to ride the Dumbo ride, which was great. We got to meet Elsa, which was cool. Poppy didn't really she kind of got shy. Same thing with Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse made Poppy cry, but she's 2, so what are you gonna do?
I mean, and it's a giant mouse.
It is a giant mouse, and it's kind of weird. It's like the whole shtick of meeting Mickey Mouse is, oh, he's in his house reviewing films. Like he's just all like in his house, like just in this
He's
studio,
a
basically
he's a
looking at.
workaholic.
He's a workaholic. You could
Are
go
they
all sorts of.
trying to convince kids that Mickey Mouse is the one who's responsible for all of their favorite Disney movies
Yeah,
and
so
that
then
he
there's like
edits them?
this weird like kind of the meta story. It's like so Mickey Mouse is in the movies, but he also makes all the movies. I was like, either way, it was fine. It's for the kids. So first of all, I will say Disneyland is fantastic, really kid friendly, really good for parents with kids. Obviously, it's expensive. We were very fortunate to get free tickets thanks to some friends. So shout out to Alex and Joe, friends of the family, friends of the podcast. Um, but we also made a trip to Star Wars Land, which obviously my daughter is not old enough to have watched any Star Wars or appreciate it. So this is more for the adults. Star Wars Land was really cool from a design perspective, but it was kind of empty. And specifically coming from the kid areas, the where there's just tons of activities packed into the square footage. Star Wars Land, there really wasn't a ton to do. And I know I'm calling it Star Wars Land. I know it's technically Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, but everything else is land. Fantasyland, Tomorrowland, I think, what's it? Kiddie Playland. I don't know. Adventureland. It's just called Star Wars Land, people. Yeah, so Disney catches a lot of flack, I think, for how they rolled out the Star Wars stuff. Obviously, we know the Galaxy's Edge or the Galactic Star Cruiser
Was a
went out, went out of
colossal
business.
failure.
By the way, have you watched the like 4 hour takedown or like review of the Jenny Nicholson one?
It was phenomenal.
Did I send that to you?
I don't know if you did or I watched it on my own,
Yeah,
but
it got very popular when it came out.
yeah, I was shocked that a 4-hour YouTube review of a now defunct hotel would catch my interest, but I watched the entire thing. I was streaming it on my TV watching it, not
Yeah,
just like from my phone.
I mean, I think Jenny Nicholson is a fantastic YouTuber. You should watch her also long episode about Evermore, this like fantasy theme park in Utah. That was she did a similar thing with the Star Wars hotel. Anyway, yeah, so Star Wars Land was kind of empty. There's not a ton to do. There's not a ton that's like explicitly for kids. But we hit the bar and Haley got something with the foam that made her mouth or her lips numb, which was kind of cool. And we went to Ronto Roasters and got a Ronto wrap, which was very good. I think we got not blue milk, we got green milk, which was just like a smoothie type thing, which was delicious, to be quite frank. And again, yeah, great design on all of the buildings and the environment, but not a ton to do. It's really just a lot of gift shops, bar, and then the Millennium Falcon that you can go and take pictures in front of. Now, to be fair, we didn't ride any of the rides just because Poppy it's not old enough. But
I mean, even just being there and being able to walk through it, I feel like would be
I was going to say, if you have the occasion to, if you're in California, if you're in Orlando, you should go and you should check it out. But you know, it's obviously not too, they've invested so much money that I'm sure they're not going to do away with it. But I do hope that they continue to improve it, especially as, knock on wood, they have Star Wars properties that land a little bit better with the public, like Andor, maybe like at least the early seasons of The Mandalorian. We'll see.
Clone Wars.
Well, I mean, Clone Wars is like, do people feel as strongly about the Clone Wars as they do about even like Andor season one? I don't know.
Probably not, but it's great content.
It came out of,
It's definitely more childish, but it's still very, very good material and expands the lore of the universe.
I saw something with Sam Witwer, who is the voice of Palpatine on the
And
Clone Wars.
Maul,
And Maul too?
he does Maul as
He's
well in, yeah, one of them.
okay. In one of like the live actions or in the Clone Wars
No, animated.
cartoons? Okay. And he was talking about how to introduce your kids to Star Wars. And he's like, start with the Clone Wars so that they develop this like thing for Anakin. I'm like, I don't know if Anakin was as compelling of a character to a kid in the Clone Wars TV. I don't know. It was like, why don't you start with episode 4, A New Hope?
Yeah, kids aren't going to watch that though because it's live action. Give them cartoons; they're going to eat that shit up.
Well, yeah, I don't know. One of my first memories is episode 4, watching like specifically Han and Luke and Obi-Wan and Chewie come out of the hidden compartments on the Millennium Falcon. I was like, that's like a core
Yeah,
memory.
but in the mid '90s, what cartoons did we have that were actually good? Not very
That's
many.
true. That's true. I read an article about a Star Wars TV series that was never produced. This was back when it was still like Lucasfilm was independent and George Lucas was at the helm. And you think episodes of TV are expensive now? Like what was an episode of The Acolyte? Weren't those rumored to be like $25 million an episode or something like that?
I don't remember.
Okay, so that was 20, let's say it's at least 25 million an episode. This article that I was reading said that this series, which was probably over 20 years in the past when they were planning it out, episodes would have been $40 million each.
Yeah, but they would have been so good
Then they would have made them. I don't know.
because money equals good product. That's what everything else has told us.
Okay, well, now you're being sarcastic, which I agree with the sarcasm.
Amazon Prime,
Yeah, well, it's
Rings of Power.
Rings of Power. Mount Doom is just going to be a stack of money that we set on fire. All right, well, we're off topic, but this was, I wanted to share my experience with Star Wars Land, Galaxy's Edge.
This was Elves, Rings, and Nerdy Things. You can follow us on Facebook. We promise to put more episodes out more frequently because, I mean, we don't know. We're hoping that life is kind to us and we have time for hobbies. But that's our plan. Next week, we will have 3 episodes of Vox Machina Season 3, followed by the final 3 episodes of Season 3, and we will prepare for Andor Season 2. That's it for me.
Bye, everybody.